Hello. So this is more of like an impromptu. Generally, I write some things down over the course of days, sometimes weeks of dreams, signs, things coming to me before I record, at least a little bit. But I woke up today and I just posted, I think yesterday, so I was not planning on doing this. I actually woke up with like a little bit of anxiety. I felt my jaw like clenching a little bit. So I don't know, maybe someone here is experiencing some sort of jaw tension or maybe teeth clenching, some sort of tensing in the body in certain areas for maybe longer periods of time than you'd like. Maybe you're just bringing awareness to this or something like that. But yeah, so I just sort of breathed through it and listened to some frequency music. And then I just honestly got I'm usually not so peppy in the morning, and I felt quite, Then I realized simultaneously, my friend had sent me a photo from back where I'm from, and the sky was like a violet purple. And I didn't think too much about it. I just thought like, oh my God, like it almost seems like a frequency of the auroras, the Aurora Borealis, which I've always been very fascinated and obsessed with. So that's what I'm mostly going to be speaking of. So if that's something that interests you as well, then yeah. And at the same time that I had that thought, an app on my phone, which I completely forgot I had for tracking the auroras, there was a notification, which I don't get very often. And then I was like, what is going on with the auroras? Then I opened Instagram and, okay, so I just had an alarm go off that I completely forgot I set. Excuse me. And like I said, yeah, I woke up earlier than normal, so there could be something that you feel like you are surprisingly, I'm hearing, ahead of schedule on, or you might be soon. The alarm went off and sort of surprised me a bit. Yeah. So there's something about the surprise element of surprise. Okay. So I was talking about, I opened Instagram, and the first thing was someone who I follow. She talks about like ascension reports, essentially. And she was talking about the auroras and after the storms dissipating. We've had storms, and I did just go out of my comfort zone a bit yesterday and posted like a just little collective transmission about the storm. Not necessarily about it, but more just tuning into that consciousness and kind of like a collective moving prayer kind of thing, just to open up that glimmer of hope and co-creation, But I was thinking about it this morning. That could also be utilized just to tune into like elemental consciousness, into working with the devas. I didn't even mention the devas, but I kept feeling the energy of the deva. DEVA. Okay, so yeah. So she was talking about the auroras right away too, and I was like, whoa, all this aurora activity. And it's funny because I would say within the last year, I kept getting this message. I actually don't know if I posted this. It may be in one of my earlier videos, actually. I'm not sure. But I kept getting this message about the Aurora Borealis and how, excuse me, the frequency of the auroras is going to strengthen and start moving to parts of the planet that maybe it wasn't seen before, and there was going to be like a stronger emanation of the Aurora Borealis and how it was connected to sort of like what we call the inner earth frequencies, the inner earth beings, the inner earth realms. Now, sometimes that can come across as a more like interdimensional type of realm. And, I want to say that each person's relationship to some of these concepts can differ a bit. And then, so I kept feeling that for a while now. And I did pull up from the Ascension Glossary, the Aurora page. Now, a lot of what is said here were experiences, feelings, things that I had been having for quite a while before I found this description and the Ascension Glossary in general. And it really helped me to just sort of amplify and piece together some experiences, like I said, that I was feeling and seeing. So with the Aurora, I'm hearing the frequency bands, the photon belt. So yeah, there's something coming about the awareness and the realization of more of the inner workings. And it's funny because the atom keeps coming up the last few days, the atomic spin, and the layers upon which creation continues to unfold. And it's like, oh, I'm hearing clarity emergence. I believe that is a video that I posted within the last few months. So maybe there's a message there for you. But yeah, there's some sort of like universal matrices clarity that is unfolding into the next layer. And it's funny because it feels like, oh yeah, like not everyone. I did not mean to say that. I meant to say, it often feels like we're trying to like figure it out and crack the code. And when I say we, I just mean as like a human civilization. And I don't know, sometimes it feels like that's what it's like to be, that drives being human, the curiosity. Like, I feel like the deeper I go with things sometimes, like almost sometimes the more questions come up, which is quite exciting, if you think about it from a seeker's point of view. But I'm also seeing, the Ouroboros has been coming up, the snake eating its tail, and like the idea of, death and rebirth. I was talking about that yesterday too, and the cycles, and how it does feel like as we continue to, for those of us who are interested in seeking and understanding and diving deeper, it's like we close out these cycles, like the Ouroboros, eating its tail. It's like once we feel like we completed that loop or that, just cycle. It's like, yes, you sit in that for a minute and then boom, like another layer appears and another, it's like that spiral, cyclical. And then you take what you integrate from that past cycle, it shows up in a new way, and then it's like the next adventure begins, I don't know why that's coming through, but that's what I'm seeing. Okay, so, and interestingly, the violet purpley color that my friend showed in the sky, that was in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure where else it was. I didn't really look too much. I just opened the app quickly to see the strongest points, the Aurora app, which I don't even think I've used yet, to be honest. And of course, Iceland, Norway, Canada were the most places. But a place that surprised me, I don't know, maybe you know this, but I did not know, Russia. And the Ascension report, she said something about Europe, and I'm currently in Europe right now, so I was very excited to hear that, but I don't know where in Europe. There was also, she was talking about the plasma fire coming in after all of the water from the hurricanes and stuff. And I didn't even realize this, but last night I kept feeling the energy of grandfather fire. I believe grandfather fire is like an Aboriginal Australian mythos, archetypal being, if I'm not mistaken. But I kept feeling that energy, so it's like everything I was feeling is starting to show up. So there may be a similar experience for you, and if not, there could be soon that stepping in, basically you're like stepping into that holographic reality where you are perceiving internally, and then things are showing up in your external reality that are coming to you first. For a few of you, I feel like it could have happened at a different point in your life, maybe when you were younger, and then maybe it sort of dissipated, and it's like it's coming back online even stronger. This has been coming through quite a bit recently, sort of like the survival mode, poverty consciousness. I'm hearing survivor's guilt. That's an interesting one. That one I did not expect that. And now my ears are frequency shifting. I'm hearing like pitches, especially in the left ear. So survivor's guilt. Yeah. Survival mode, all of these, essentially like the root chakra area. I was going to say the Sanskrit name, but for some reason it did not come out of my mouth properly. It was jumbled. So there could be an energy of that too, where you feel like something that had felt like jumbled or scrambled, or like you weren't able to smooth out the energy. I'm seeing like an iron, when like a shirt is so wrinkled that even when I never iron, so I don't know why this is coming up, but maybe someone here used to iron or irons, but it's like when you have a shirt that's so wrinkled, and no matter how many times you go over, there's still that crease. That's like the energy I'm getting. But it feels like on a collective level, at least of those who are, tuned in and consciously working through like ancestral karmic patterns. They call those the curse breakers, if you will. It feels like there was this collective shift. And the other night when I was recording, I kept getting this like celebratory energy, of the closing of this cycle. And I was sitting with this yesterday and speaking to someone who I'm staying with in Belgium, and it was sort of like the ending of this, I don't want to say the ending, but the closing of this this past cycle. I was hearing this with him and his ancestors, and I'm hearing it again for certain people that feel connected to this. Like it ends with me, it ends with me, it ends with you. So there's some ancestral cyclical pattern connected to that root area. So sort of like that mentality, and it keeps coming up. There's like multiple people who have it has come up within the past few days of like certain parameters or limitations that felt like there was no other way to survive through, like that perpetual, almost like I'm getting like I'll be happy when syndrome, but when you're in that survival mode of, and all of this is so valid because there were some really tough times in our history all over the world, and wars and all these different things. So this is not at all to say like, oh, our ancestors were, nothing like that. At least from my perspective, I always do my best to honor their, like understand where they were coming from and honor that. But at the same time, there is it wasn't easy to do this either. So there's so many layers and factors, like I was speaking about in the beginning, where the time, the energetics were very potent for these type of souls, these ancestral curse breakers, to incarnate and start to really put into practice these shifts, So my throat has been really closing up as I'm talking through this. So yeah, a form of expression for sure. New ways of expressing. And with the survival mode type of mentality, it doesn't leave much space generally for creative expression or pondering your talents or cultivating your, your inner mystic. And so, or it doesn't have to be mysticism. That's just something that's coming through. But, when there's just taking moments to, sometimes I do this, I'll just send whatever love frequency I feel to, all of those. There's something about the mother side of the family and this inner mystic, seer, creative, seeing stuff with the hands too. Where even if they did have time to practice some of these things, it was generally either done in secret, or there's this shame around it. Yeah, so I feel this really big release of shame. I know there's been, I'm hearing hip pain. I know someone I'm staying with is going through this, but I'm feeling a collective of either hip pain or hip tightness. They say we carry guilt in our hips, shame. I've never heard shame, but I always connect shame for some reason also. Guilt and shame with that. And then more for that survival, feeling you need to provide and there's not enough. Back pain for sure. Feeling unsupported, knee and ankle pain. So yeah, some of these things, specifically with the back, it's the mid to lower back. And then for more of feeling you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, or a lot of responsibility has fallen on you. You're taking on burdens. A lot of the neck and shoulder tightness is coming through. So yeah, these are just some emotional connections to some body aches and pains. So yeah, it feels there's this purging, just this hurricane that came through of the pain body connected through the root and the survivor mentality. And I was saying now, to have just maybe hold that space of gratitude of the privilege to be able to, that we've all, sort of co-created together, the space to cultivate some of these, extra ESP, extra sensory perception, talents, gifts, whatever it is that are focused on, from the heart, from giving enough for all type of thing, and a more cohesiveness and sharing, a little bit less judgment, a little more holding space for people to express what is truly coming through them. Your original spark, if you will. So yeah, that's something that really feels is showing up more. And when I say these cycles are closing, is life every single day just going to be rainbows and butterflies and everything's amazing? I mean, maybe a little bit each day, but there's, we're still humans and things still come up, but there's more of an ease around it. And, probably past experiences that maybe you felt so deeply in yourself that it just wasn't quite coming out in the way that you hoped, whether, it's an expressive thing or maybe something a place you were trying to move, or, just different things that you really feel within. It's like there's there's more of an ease around that. And yeah, I'm hearing in my head progress, not perfection. That's something I've been telling myself a lot lately. So yeah, it's like there's some progress really flooding in. And also, yeah, with the pain body, when I was speaking of that, a lot of awareness seems to be coming through in terms of realizing how, your body systems work, how bodies work in unison with the emotional body and with, the astral body, and understanding how it's tuned into the earth grids. And yeah, there's these these layers peeling back of the emergence of the interconnectedness. And for those who are really feeling this, you'll know what I mean. Sometimes there's not always the perfect words to describe, but you may realize that you get migraines every time there's a rocket, I meant to say, the solar flares. Like when the solar flares get really intense, you may realize that your body responds in a certain way. Or when there's natural disaster somewhere, you may realize that your body's holding some sort of, I don't know, I'm seeing someone get bloated for some reason. You may be bloated and holding in that water retention. And then when the water is released, you may feel like you get released. There's these different interconnectedness. And if you already were aware of some of these things, and there's, again, the next layer is peeling back. So yeah, that is pretty exciting. Now back to the auroras. And when it's so interesting, because when I was receiving a lot of those messages, I remember I was in such doubt, and I remember I wanted to share, and I was like, I don't even know where to start or how to do this. And when I felt it this morning, it was like I couldn't, or not even this morning, like honestly, right before I pushed record, it was like I couldn't contain it. And I was like, I have to talk about this. Yeah, so there's a lot of I'm seeing like a misty energy, misty fog that is starting to clear. And it's interesting because when I was listening to Indigo Angel, I believe I posted one of her videos in the last recording. It wasn't the short one. There was a longer recording, Quantum Mirror Consciousness, or Quantum Mirror Transmission. And I was listening to her video, and she talks a lot about the future light cities and how they connect in with different parts of the original organic grids that are coming back online in the earth, etc. So yeah, grid work could be relevant for someone. You may be feeling pulled more to work with earth grids, or if you're someone, again, who's already doing this, it feels like the next layer is revealing itself. But anyway, so when I was watching her video and understanding the concepts about, these future light cities and how it works with the grids, and she was really emphasizing Mount Pinnacle in Arkansas, Japan, there were, Australia, there's these different places of future light cities is what she calls them. And I was sitting there and I was asking, like, what is her work has taught me so much, and whenever I watch it, I feel like there's another aspect that I feel. And then I remembered the auroras and how it's funny because I was thinking about this recently and now it's showing up like in my face basically. And okay, before I continue on with this, I'm going to read a little bit from the Ascension Glossary. I will post this in the description box, the link, if you want to read too, or go into any deeper research on this. But Actually, no, I think I want to talk a little bit more first about the feeling I was having, because the auroras coming through when, I don't know why this is coming up, but yeah, when I was in middle school, I remember in science class, I still remember my teacher, and he would teach about the Earth's crust, and I always had such an interest in that. And it's funny because I was not considered like a good student, you know. I didn't do great in that type of learning style, but I always loved hearing about that. Like, I would like listen to him talk, and I was fascinated, and he talked about the Aurora Borealis, and I was like, what is that? I need to know what that is. Like, I was always so drawn to this. So yeah, you can be someone like from a young age who just, even if you didn't understand it from like a, you know, passing an A in school, there might have just been like a draw to, or maybe you did, but there might have just been like a draw to some of these concepts. And whenever I would tune into when I started to practice seeing auras and reading auras, etc., you know, I started with my own, and I always felt this like aurora light feeling. And when I would see my aura start to come up. Now, I think at some point, maybe in the Aurora re-encryption video, I talk about an experience that I had with the auroras, and a couple times in dark rooms. So if you're interested, you can listen to that. I'm not going to go into detail here, but yeah, there's something about the personal experiences and how they're showing up externally. And I talked about that a lot in the quantum mirror consciousness video that I posted last. Anyway, so back to these, if you want to call it light cities or light matrices. I'm getting the photon belt again. The frequency bands. Yeah, there's something about our own light body and, you know, the Ka body, the Merkaba vehicle of light. There's been this, I think, wave of available initiation and activations for those who are tuning into this. And I've been talking about this a lot too, and so have plenty of other people. The etherization of, you know, the blood, or more embodiment of the light matrices or the soul essence actually integrating within the body. And I remember I was going to say something else, but now there's something else coming through. You know, sometimes with these concepts, it's like, it's taken quite some time for me to be able to really start talking about and sharing these things, because, you know, sometimes it can feel a little like sci-fi-ish, you know? But like I always say, there's kernels of truth everywhere. And someone who I saw yesterday, I met a few weeks ago, and I haven't seen her since. And she was like, oh, there was something that you told me, and I felt it, and it happened recently, and I wanted to share it with you. And I'm saying this because it was like she had this, I basically explained to her what I just said about embodying more of that essence. And one of the experiences that I had, I think it was like 2018, 2019, and I shared about this recently, of sort of like almost a walk-in experience with, for me, it was like a higher aspect of the monadic connection for myself, but, you know, for others, it can be different things. And I talk about this in other videos. So, but anyway, with that idea of embodying more of this soul essence, if you will, somebody was working on her, and she said she felt like something was being pushed in her body, like the woman's hands were on her head, and the woman wasn't pushing anything, but she said she could feel a push. And right before she told me this, I saw like a violet light, like line on the right side of her body, and then she said it felt like more of my soul essence was literally being pushed in my body. She's like, exactly like what you said, like I felt it. And then I said, well, guess what I'm seeing right now? And she had this like, yeah, this violet hue. It was like an indigo blue, violet lining the right side of her body. Yeah, so, you know, there may be an experience that's a metaphysical experience or some sort of like similar. Of course, each one of us experienced these different. Mine was, I was alone and I was I was alone at least within this dimension, but then other dimensions like sort of opened up, and it was like a series of experiences that led up to this one experience. So yeah, each of us will have our unique connection to this, but I do feel like there's, and for some of you, it might just be like a knowing. There might not be some remembrance in that way, but you may have like signs, synchronicities, dreams, something that will show you that this process is taking place. Okay. Now, back to the grid work and the auroras. There was something that I kept feeling where the more awareness that is brought in that co-creative space to remembering, you know, what crystalline light cities, activations of the crystal body, and like in the Lemurian epoch or Lemurian times, they talk about star forts have been coming up a lot lately. And the other day, something popped up on Instagram, and it was this guy talking about these healing centers that are popping up, and the design of the buildings and the way that they're being built on the land reminded me so much of these star forts. And yeah, even geodesic domes, like these more sacred geometric patterns popping in. And so the start of these remembrances, you know, have always been here in some fashion, but there's a resurgence of this. And where the auroras come in, they say that the auroras are essentially like streaming in from the next harmonic universe into our reality. And the more that we, you know, transmute that pain body, make that space, and embody more of that soul essence in the ascent, on the organic ascension timeline, the auroras, that next harmonic universe, starts to, if you will, bleed into this universe more deeply. So that's what I was always being shown. And then when I was tuning into Indigo Angel and what she was talking about with the grids and excuse me, and these like future light cities. Now, the 7 higher planes are coming through in anthroposophy. They talk about this. I believe in theosophy. You know, then we have like Shambhala has been coming through a lot, or another variation, telos. Like there's these different, what they call like more Eden-like places, or that like idea of paradise. There's also another civilization that I was shown in a presentation before, like a couple years ago. I'm not going to share that exactly right now because this person who shared it wasn't ready to talk about it publicly, but you know, there's just these periods of time and like almost like pockets of you know, when we talk about like astral residue or cellular memory, or these pockets of remembrance that have still been kept intact in different ways. And it's funny because I had a dream about glaciers a few months ago, and then last night the woman who was telling me about her experience was showing me photos of glaciers. Or no, sorry, she was telling me about these glaciers that she experienced in Alaska. So yeah, there's something about these, like, and I talk about this sometimes, like the rune Isa, like this preservation of what ice is preserving, you know, whether it's literally on the planet, metaphorically, emotionally speaking, and then, you know, we can have this outpouring of emotion, or this melting of water, or an excess of water that sort of reveals this preservation. And I'm getting with these Aurora frequencies and potential light cities that a lot of us already feel like we tune into, you know, in meditation or in other perceiving and utilizing our other senses or deepening our senses. For me, it's like the Aurora Borealis expanding and moving is like, yeah, it's like there's a merging. It's funny because we talk about a lot of timelines, merging of timelines. And then what I'm being shown right now is like not only are there timelines coming together from, you know, if it was like split Earth timelines, but there's, the higher harmonic universe is merging in or bleeding in a bit more and co-creating that, well, I guess a lot of people call it New Earth, or just this this golden age, this next ascent into the next octave of consciousness, the next level of consciousness, that next layer, you know, being revealed. It's like deepening into that, and the co-creative experience is starting to materialize, you know, and it's pretty exciting. And I know there's like a lot of devastation right now, and there's people going through a lot of fear. So I always try to honor that and send compassion and be there in ways I can. And that, that's not to negate anything that's going on and how much uncertainty and, you know, how scary that can be. So I also want to, honor that, but it just shows like the polarity and the duality that can exist on this planet, like how you can have these amazing experiences and, you know, feel this level of liberation and freedom and sovereignty, and then also, you know, still understand and hold that many layers and levels of existence existing in the same place, you know? Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit about the Aurora from the Ascension Glossary. Aurora from the 7 higher heavens in Andromeda. I can't believe I haven't mentioned Andromeda yet. Yeah, duh. Okay, well, that's okay. Answered the guardian host clarion call and have joined them. I'm having trouble reading right now. I think I'm too excited. Have joined them to protect this particular universal time matrix. As a result, we also have omniversal God sources that are referred to as the Aurora hosts that are also connected to the primary guardian host. Now, anytime I say, and I've said this before, you know, words like God, universe, please always just take what feels good to you. And I say whenever I reference something or, you know, read something, I always invite you to use your discernment and what feels good to you. And feel free to like share your perspective. I'd love to hear. Now, essentially like the path through, I did talk about this in the Aurora re-encryption video about the connection with Andromeda and the Auroras and our galaxy, the Milky Way, how it used to be a part of, they say Milky Way was a part of Andromeda, and then like the Milky Way became the Milky Way, it broke off, and eventually we will recollide with, they call it like the mother galaxy, Andromeda. And, you know, it's like it wanted to experience itself on its own, like a piece of it, and then eventually there will be a reemergence of that. But just like quantum entanglement says, when just because there's a separation physically doesn't mean there's an actual separation, you know? So to me, like the Auroras have that like piece of that next harmonic universe that comes through Andromeda into our galaxy as like, I don't know, it's like that mother energy, the remembrance of that wholeness. That's not written here. That's just something that I personally feel. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more. The consciousness units of the next universe, the rays of the next universe. Oh, and I often talk about the Aquiline sun codes that emanate from the suns of Andromeda. That was like pastel heliotalic rays, and that has been coming through so strongly lately. Yeah. The beings that live there in alignment with Crystal Star, Krystal, Crystal Star and Unity Intelligence are called Aurora. I'm going to read that again. The beings that live there in alignment with Crystal Star and Unity Intelligence are called Aurora. Crystal Star works with the Aurora to build platforms that are safe zones that step over the reversal fields running on the Earth from the frequency fence and net. Yeah, so this is a lot about like the organic grids that has been coming through quite often, and how some of these, like, if you want to call them, people call them like false matrices or false grids, reversal networks. Like I'm getting like Saturn and the like Black Mirror concept, and there's another phrase that I'm hearing, but I can't quite grasp it. When I made the Cathar grid video, I was talking about a dream that I had, and when I was shown these inorganic grids, it was just like a blob, like a black blob essentially. And then I did find that in research after the dream. And then when I tuned into the organic grids, it was that like double terminated, 12 spherical tree of life or Cathar grid. So there's something like that that's popping in again. They are sometimes referred to as the dragon luminaries. Oh, I was just talking about the dragons too in the last video. Or the tritone luminary grid. They exist as 3 complete tri-waves merged as one field. So when I first started tuning in to my own channel, the Golden Council triangle of light came through. And of course I was like, thought I was making this up, blah, blah, blah. This is before I found the Ascension Glossary, by the way, and Lisa Renee's work and Ashana Dean's work on Keylontic Science, etc. Now, I felt that energy come through recently, and this time they came through as the Golden Triad of light. It was like an evolution of that, supposedly my evolution, to receive that. But there's also, like, it's like, I don't know, what's showing me right now is like the evolution continues, like even in these what we call higher states of consciousness. It's all just an expression of consciousness. So the continual evolution and these cycles, like it doesn't stop just because we don't quite understand some of these maybe higher frequency bands. Let's see. They are sometimes referred to as the dragon luminaries. I already read that. Aurora answered our call for assistance during the ascension cycle, and they are the beloved guardians that are hosting the universal ascension and hosting our planet for ascension. They defend personal sovereignty through the law of one for all life. Oh, this is our guardian team for AOA, Heroes Gamos. That's been coming through so much lately, the Heroes Gamos. And this is one of their many ascension hosting projects. We communicate with them through the Aurora portal networks and through Mother Ark's crystal Aegis breastplate. That's interesting because I was talking about the breastplate recently, and when I was tuning into this frequency, I kept getting that mother energy. So Aurora's many projects also are key in the re-encryption of our DNA. Yes, that's what I was talking about in the Aurora re-encryption video. By healing the elementals and the chemical DNA. Yeah, the elemental consciousness. See, it's like all coming together. It's pretty cool to see. Of our 1D and 2D elemental body. Aurora is best amplified when working in the HG system to heal the personality matrix 1, 2, 3D for re-encryption of dead light miasma or dead light harnesses. Aurora upgrades the core frequency of the elemental body and their consciousness units that chemically arrange into our DNA code. Okay, so this is what I was getting in the beginning. I swear I did not read that, of how the deepening of the elemental consciousness. I believe I talked about that or wrote that in the description box in the quantum mirror transmission. the elemental consciousness and the re-encryption of the interconnectedness of the elements and us. So yeah, I'm glad that I was able to feel that first and then have it come through, because yeah, it's just, sometimes it helps to feel things, at least for me. Yeah. Okay, what's next? The Aurora re-encryption to organic matrix repels and dissolves the inorganic matrix of alien machinery. Wow, I'm really having a hard time reading today. Embedded in the cellular and tissue levels. Yeah, that was coming through too. And what I said before about alien machinery, like I said, whether we take this literal as beings that aren't necessarily from our either time matrix or from our planet, but also just alien machinery as in inorganic materials, structures, agendas, etc. That's the way I've been taking it, and the way it comes through for me. The auroras may appear as multicolored orbs or sheets of pastel, milky, formless liquid light that may shapeshift into forms and may appear similar to Aurora Borealis, interdimensional resonant tone. Yeah, exactly what I was feeling, the pastel, definitely. Interdimensional resonant tone. Oh, and the shapeshifting into forms. Yeah, so when I have those experiences, I actually feel it quite often, and I'll see it quite often, and sometimes I think people, I go into like a stare when I see some of these things. So yeah, I think if you're having any of these experiences yourself or just like feelings, I hope this is in some way helping to maybe just sort of assist in your self-validation or expression. If you're feeling called to create something with this or share, or maybe you already are. Yeah. Okay, there's a few more paragraphs. The one I'm drawn to is Aurora re-encryption of blueprint. I'm going to read a little bit of that, and then I think I'm going to close this out, and then I will do an overflow. So you can feel free to meet me there if that's something that calls to you. An overflow in Patreon, which will be linked below. And yeah, big releases. There is so much releasing right now. I can feel it. Okay, in terms of the Aurora, their mission and support is to work with the new elemental command, and this role is to re-encrypt the physical body on atomic and subatomic levels, because the chemical constituents of our DNA is an elemental base. So our physical body is an elemental body, and it's comprised of these 4 base level chemical constituents. We can use the 4 elements to understand the 4 levels of chemicals that compose our DNA, which is earth, fire, water, and air. Of course, then you have ether. These particle elements had gone through so much in the history of human evolution, and lots of distortions that had been created on the planetary levels, because, remember, we are interfacing with the planetary body. It is us. We are making up the collective body of the planet. We're holding the oneness of the planetary body as a group human soul. Elements of the human physical body are quite distorted in the cellular matrix because of the invasion and genetic manipulation histories. Thus, the re-encryption process was decided to be part of mission upgrade of Ascension Plan B. Our human bodies are not transmuting fast enough the karmic base, the miasma that was needed in order to move us through less defense formats, in order to handle the accelerated frequency energy. This is a primary reason that we are having the Aurora host this planet for the Ascension timeline. The Aurora had been working with many of us, consciously or not. The Aurora consciousness has a pale white opaqueness saturated with colors which almost reminds me of cellophane. It's funny because I've been seeing a lot of images coming through like that. And there was this really beautiful little tiny, I think it was a dragonfly. Unfortunately, it died in my tea. So I just sent it on to the next life, but its wings were so like in the liquid. It was like exactly what this is describing. I've been noticing actually there's been a lot of insects like dying around me. I don't know. Like sometimes that will just happen. It might be the time of season, but in the last week I've just noticed like I've been finding just like a couple bees at the same time. And then, the little tiny, I think it was a dragonfly. And then there were a few other little insects that I just like, I don't know. Maybe someone here is finding dead insects as well. But yeah, I always just do my best to send them on to the next realm with love. Now, some of these concepts about like, having assistance from other harmonics to re-encrypt our physical bodies, our frequency nets, etc., etc. I've seen this being spoken about quite often, and sometimes it's not that I have a resistance to it, it's more just I really try to understand and sit with some of these concepts before I just automatically take it as an instant yes. Because I really truly believe like we can tap into that sovereignty and continue co-creating from that space. And so it's not like whether or not these things are true or not are irrelevant, because I do think it's important to know our history and to understand what's happening currently and how we can, work through that. But I also really do believe that if we take responsibility, and I'm not saying to blame ourselves necessarily, that's not what I'm saying. It's just no matter what has been going on, we, like I was saying in the beginning of this video, I didn't even know they were going to talk about that, clearing the karma miasma. When we take responsibility for that in a loving way, and of course expressing our emotions as they come up, anger, frustration, shame, guilt, all the things, holding space for that and continuing to transmute that pain into passion, into whatever it is. I think that's why we're seeing these, stronger essence of Aurora or remembrances of, Indigo Angels talking about these birthing new islands in Japan. There's newness popping around all of us all the time if we're, tuning into that. So, yeah, just wanted to add that. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening. And I by the way, whenever I do these, I always, tune in and say thank you to all of the realms and dimensions upon which we exist that are assisting, to all of you, if anyone drops by and listens. And I just create these, crystalline liquid-like containers for those who are ready to receive. Just really setting containers and really working with the energetics behind a lot of these transmissions. And I actually had someone the other day comment and ask why I call them transmissions, because I'm just talking. And I didn't even see the comment until now. And I think it was like a month ago. So timing is another thing, but I guess I haven't been sharing my process as much in terms of why I call them transmissions, and that's what I was guided to call them. And, there's a light stream of consciousness that I bring through, not just me, but this multidimensionality that comes through. And I have, for a long time, it's just like when someone is an energy healer and they heal with their hands, which, I also do hands-on sessions. There's also those of us, just like the Aurora re-encryption, when we re-encrypt our energy signature through our throat, through our voice, and there's a transmission that occurs with that. A stream of light codes, geometric codes, and I, almost daily or most days will sit with the elements, with the sun, with the moon, in meditation, however I receive light codes within my field, and then I transmit them through, my words. And of course, some of this is more of like an energetic subconscious process that has over time really integrated within. And, sometimes to be on the receiving end of this, if you don't feel something from it, then maybe this isn't, this is only for those who feel called to this. Or if you do feel something, it could be very subtle. And sometimes I just call it like planting seeds. Like you may realize something, I don't know, days, wees. That's actually my dad's nickname. So my dad crossed over in 2017. So someone here might be having like a father or a grandfather, a paternal energy and spirit reaching out to you, because I did not mean to say wees. And he's been in my dreams recently, actually. So yeah, there could be something about that. But yeah, I'm getting a very like fatherly grandfather. I'm seeing the letter T and a D, A, I, O. Okay, so yeah, there's something, I just heard like torrents, T-O. Okay, there's something, coming through, about the receiving end, and how that will be felt differently, perhaps by each of you or uniquely. But I'm happy to answer any more questions, so feel free to ask, and I will do my best to answer. And if you have any further questions on that, I would love to hear. Okay, thank you.